I got the live stream memo, so.
Okay, should be ready to go.
Good, thank you very much, Alicia.
You're welcome.
All right, let me get this out of the way so I can actually see my screen. There's so much information. Get rid of that. We'll get that over here. All right. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Hideout Utah Town Council regular meeting and continued public hearing of October 14th, 2021. This meeting is an electronic meeting without an anchor site location pursuant to my letter of October 7th, which is attached to the package. Basically reminds everybody that COVID is sadly not gone away, and we need to continue to vigilance to ensure safety of everyone. I'm going to call the meeting to order, and I'm going to take roll call. And Bob Nadelberg.
I am here, even though you can't see me.
That's good. Ralph Severini.
I'm here.
Hello, Ralph. Nice to
Hi,
hear your
Phil.
voice.
Same here.
Chris Spire.
I'm here.
Thank you. And we know Carol is not here now and hopefully will join later. But 3 is a quorum, so we can continue. First item for review is approval of council minutes of October 16th, 2020. That was a long, tough meeting, and I think you did a very nice job, Alicia. My comment for you is on page 2 of 6 or page 6 of the package, whichever you prefer. On line 32. And now that I'm reading it again, maybe it's okay. Okay, no, it's fine. Never mind. I read it wrong the first time. I was looking for a comma that wasn't there. So I'm think you did a great job. I didn't see anything specifically. I would ask the council, who, particularly those of you who commented and are mentioned by name, to look at your comments to make sure you're comfortable with her translation or her capture of your comments in the sections below. But I think she's done a great job.
I had some thoughts on page 5, but I'll wait until
Oh,
you
go
know,
ahead,
yeah,
Ralph. You're going. Go.
all right. Well,
Page 5 of 6 or page 5
Right.
of the PDF?
yeah, page 5 of 6, which if I can find it here.
Okay.
So down in the area of line 5 through 21. So, by the way, minutes are great, but I'm not sure we captured everything in this section that I'd like to see captured. There was a lot of debate and discussion around the annexation, and I don't think that was fully captured. I could be wrong. So, and then the other piece that I noticed here, and I can't remember, Bob, if you moved to make this ordinance, adopt the ordinance, but if you did, it's kind of weird because you voted against it, but you made a motion for it. So I just like to check the audio on this, because this is such an important set of minutes, and we're still in litigation. I think we need to capture that piece correctly. So
Yeah, I moved so that we may put it to a vote to basically move the meeting along and get some resolution. Moving to adopt the ordinance should not be construed as a support of it as it was.
well, good. At least we cleared that up. So since we're in month 12, could I get a copy of the tape or the video or the MP4 just to listen to this section?
Yeah, it's all on YouTube.
It's on the
I can
website.
send-
It's on
Yeah.
the-
Okay,
Yeah,
so
it's
I
on the
can just
website,
go
it's
to the
on
website.
YouTube.
Terrific.
I could send you the link as well, if you'd like.
Yeah, send me the link so I know exactly which one we're
Okay.
going to. That would be great. I don't
Okay.
typically go to these. But overall, I thought it was, that was my only section that I really thought we should double check on.
Okay. I appreciate your feedback.
Appreciate your work.
Thank you.
Chris or Bob, any comments on what you looked at?
No,
Okay. Well, I'm going to suggest that we defer the adoption of these until the November meeting so that Ralph can review the content that he wanted to review and work with Alicia to see if he thinks there's some changes or additional comments that should be captured.
That would be great. Thanks, Mayor.
All right. Oh, yeah, I gotta remember to do this thing. I'm sorry. There's a trick here. I can make
The
this.
links should work now.
They
There's
do. I
just that
just,
one. Yeah.
I'm, the links work. I'm just looking for the, to drop down the,
The bookmarks.
the bookmarks. Yeah,
Yeah, it's that little arrow right where your mouse is right there.
yeah. But I'm trying to, but it's
Oh,
because I'm in. There we
there we
go.
go.
All
Yeah,
Thanks.
no problem.
Okay. So we're going to defer. We're going to defer minutes. We're going to defer 10, 20 minutes to the November session. The next item was a continued public hearing, and we're going to continue that to November, given the fact that Planning Commission and the planning team are still working on these. Still under review, and so we are not prepared to look at it and discuss it for adoption. So we will continue that till a date certain, being November 10th or 11th, to be determined by the items coming up shortly. So. Okay, the next item is public input. Again, this is input on topics that are not listed for tonight. So things that are listed on the agenda, we won't take comments on right now, but anything else that the members of the public wish to comment on, this is your time. The way that works, and I don't see, at the moment, I'm not seeing any phones, so it seems like everybody is connected via Zoom. And so you would raise your hand using the Zoom functionality at the bottom of the screen, or wherever it is where you see the Zoom info page that has your mute and video and all that kind of stuff. And raise your hand. And if you've got your hand raised, we'll give you a chance to make your comment. I'm not seeing any. Is anybody else seeing them that I'm missing? Okay, then I'm going to close public input and we'll move on the agenda. Okay, the first item of discussion is the possibility of rescheduling the November 11th Hideout Town regular meeting to November 10th, given that November 11th is Veterans Day. And is state holiday and our staff normally would be off, amongst others. So council, what's your availability on for Wednesday, the 10th instead of Thursday, the 11th?
Hey, Phil, I might be in Ireland, but that's not to say I couldn't be on a Zoom call. Well, actually, that'd be pretty late in Ireland.
No, it'd be really late in Ireland.
It's not to say I won't be awake.
It'd be 1 o'clock in the morning, and I don't think you really want to do that.
You don't know my friends in Ireland. They'll keep me up that late. Maybe.
Hey, the pubs close at 11, my friend.
Oh, that doesn't stop them.
I know.
They're younger than me.
I also believe that Polly would like to start the meeting at 6:30 on the
Oh, that's a good
10th.
point. Yeah, and start at 6:30 if it were to happen. Yeah. On the
Yeah.
10th.
Thanks.
So Bob, looks like a conflict for you. Ralph and Chris.
I'm okay.
I'm also okay, no conflict.
So basically, Alicia, we need to know if Carol's available on the 10th because we need a quorum.
Mayor, if Carol's joining at 6:30, should we defer this item, come back to it?
I understand she's joining at 7, but yeah.
Oh, okay, 7.
So we'll come back to it. And we'll see how we do. If we get to the end, then we'll work offline to get that finalized.
And Mayor, this is Thomas. Just one other thing with regard to the continuation of the zoning map. I think we noted that it was continued to November 10th. So we'll want to clarify that if it doesn't.
Right.
Move to the 10th if it stays on the 11th, if that
Yeah.
does. Okay,
Yeah, or another date, whatever it
Right.
comes up to be.
thanks.
Okay, thanks, Thomas. Alicia, will you make a note of that, please? So the next item is the extension of the council vacancy. We have 2 candidates that have put in for our council vacancy, which is good news. Unfortunately, neither of them were available to talk to council tonight. So we are extending that to the November meeting, giving them plenty of notice so that they can be available to introduce themselves to council, provide their particulars, and give you the opportunity to question them so that a decision can be made about who we would like to place into the vacancy. So that will either be the 10th or the 11th or whatever date we do schedule the November meeting. Okay. Any questions on that? Okay, item 3, we have a presentation regarding redistricting. As many of you may have read, or I assume some of you may have read anyway, there is a proposal for redistricting going on to attempt to find a way to provide a more balanced distribution of people into the various voting blocks or voting districts. We have one of our residents, Ken Block, who's been involved in this process in the public level, but not as a member of the town, but as a member of the public engaged in participation in this redistricting activity, and he wants to share some stuff with us tonight. So I am going to stop my share. And Ken, I believe, yeah, you're all set. If you know how to do this, then it's easy for you to just down and hit your share screen and select what it is you want to share and introduce yourself to the community. I know you, of course, but maybe not everybody does.
Okay. First, I want to thank the mayor and the council for all the hard work that you do behind the scenes. I'm sure it's in times very, very thankless, but it is appreciated. So I'm here tonight with Chris Campbell. So I'm here in part as a 8.5-year resident of Hideout and also as a participant and member of what's called Park City Leadership Class 27, as is Chris, a member of Class 27. Just as a point of information, our own Jan McCosh is a graduate of Leadership 26. And I want to just quickly pitch the leadership program, because I know at times, and I've listened into council meetings, that we feel, I think the term was once used, we don't have a seat at the table. By members of the Hideout community applying for participation in this leadership program, you do get a big seat at the table. You're meeting with prior mayors, prior town council of Summit County, of Park City, just a bevy of people from the town manager, city manager. So I'd really encourage people to look at joining, and it'll be Leadership 29, because the leadership class of 28 was just announced over the last few weeks. And it's a misnomer that it's called Park City Leadership. It was once pretty much indigenous Park City people. It's now residents of Wasatch and Summit County. And it's really a remarkable program. You meet a lot of people, you get educated in things that are not normally in the public domain. So make a note, and a year from now, think about applying for Leadership 29. Each year, the leadership program creates a class project. This year, it's a combination of a DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion package, but that's not what we're talking about tonight, but also taking advantage of the once in every 10-year redistricting. Chris Campbell and a team under him has done an exhaustive amount of research, has been educating the public. And even though we're a little late here in Hideout, I'm going to momentarily turn this over to Chris, who will go into much greater detail. Currently, I don't think things are going to change in Wasatch County. Our two elected officials, Mike Kohler and Ron Winterton, it looks like will probably be the ones within our district. I did note, though, through getting educated by Chris and his team, there's a lot of crazy things in redistricting. I learned maybe the most unique is that the Super Condor lift at the north end of the canyons is actually one of the districting lines, probably unique in the United States, that we use a ski lift to denote a redistricting barrier. But if you look at the existing lines and you look at where the potential annex land is, it could wind up being in a district, a lower house district, other than the one that we're in today. So hopefully this will just be one more action item for the council and the mayor to look at and make sure that 10 years from now we get very, very involved. So with that, I'm just going to turn it over to Chris Campbell.
Thanks, Ken.
Great, thanks, Ken. And thanks, Council and Mayor, for this chance to present. I'm going to share just a slide with some information here in some moments, just some links for further information on what I'm going to talk about. As Ken said, right now, Hideout is part of House District 54, which is represented by Mike Kohler, and Senate District 26, which is represented by Ron Winterton. The House District consists of Park City, Hideout, and Wasatch, but doesn't include Camas area and Francis area. And then the U.S. Congressional District, Wasatch County is in a different congressional district than Summit County. So one of the things that we're really and one of the conversations that's going around in this redistricting is whether it makes sense, because Summit County and Wasatch County are each about the size of a state house district. Does it make sense for them each to go into their own house district? And if so, what does that mean for Hideout? Where does Hideout prefer to be? Do you prefer to be grouped with Wasatch County? Do you prefer to be grouped with Park City? Right now, in the current house district, you're grouped with both. But if that were to change and shift, where would you want to go? So these are the kinds of conversations that our leadership class is trying to promote, talking about. And as we go into larger districts, who else do we share commonalities with? And one of the ways to consider this is to look at this concept of communities of interest. A community of interest is a group of people in a contiguous geographic area that share some common interests. It could be religious or cultural or economic or social interests and so on. It's not political interests, and it's not necessarily political boundaries. but it's ideas of who belongs in a community. For instance, in another part of Summit County, Pine Brook is actually split. It's just a neighborhood of a few thousand people, and it's split into multiple house districts. And there might be a strong argument for Pine Brook to be a community of interest, for example. Hideout might be a community of interest just as itself. Maybe the whole northern part of Jordanelle is community of interest. Maybe the whole area surrounding the Jordanelle is a community of interest. Maybe it expands into Camas and Francis. Maybe you guys see yourselves grouped there or see yourselves grouped with Park City. What we are doing as part of our leadership is encouraging conversations on this topic. We're encouraging people to get together with their neighbors, Hideout to get together, have a conversation about what does your community of interest look like. And you can draw a map. So I'll share the link now. So you can draw a map that outlines your community of interest, and you can submit it to the Independent Redistricting Commission. That's uirc.utah.gov. We like to use, they have a tool there, but you can also use this representable.org tool to draw a community of interest map. If you want to have a further conversation on this topic, we at leadership are happy to facilitate that with anybody that would like to partake, or we're going to have a public meeting over Zoom on Wednesday, October 20th from 6 to 7:30 p.m., where we talk a little bit about what our various communities of interest are along the Wasatch Back, and then we'll draw a community of interest map and we'll submit it to the Redistricting Commission. This is also the first year of our Independent Redistricting Commission. So it's a new process. Everybody's kind of learning, and with COVID, it delayed the census numbers, which has really compressed the schedule. So we don't have a lot of time left. You probably have until about October 22nd or so to get your community of interest maps in. Then the commission is going to get their report to the legislative committee November 1st. And in early to mid-November, the legislature is going to make the final decision on maps. So we recommend getting your comments in, getting your maps in, talk to the commission. I put some contact info for the representative and your representative and senator. You can let them know what you think districts should look like, if you think they should change, if you think they should include that bit of potential annexation land, for instance. If you have preference, Park City versus Wasatch versus both, things to that degree. So I will stop there because I've hit my main points and see if you have any further questions.
Chris, one thing, can you email this chart to us? Because it has all the links and I don't think we have it yet.
Yeah, I think I emailed it to Alicia.
Okay.
Who can share it as part of the public.
Yep. We'll put it on our webpage and all that. Alicia, did you get this or?
Yep, I got it.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
I think it's, I think you bring up some really interesting points, Ken and Chris. And it sounds like, we ought to be doing a little bit of talking ourselves, although we don't have a lot of time. Since we're only a week away from the the discussion and the time is tight. We've often talked in our public meetings about us being more Summit and Park City than Wasatch. We recreate, shop, and socialize more in North Summit. Well, Summit, Summit, the Summit County that sits between us and Park City, us and Redstone and that whole area, and Park City. Then we talk about being Wasatch. At the same time, we've also talked about Hideout being part of a Jordanelle community, and that growing section of populace that's moving its way around the Jordanelle from basically from Toohey, wrapping around the north end and into the Mayflower area. So I think this topic of a community of interest is very interesting. And I'm not sure where you are as council, and I'm not sure where our constituents are either in this space. So it doesn't give us a lot of time to do some testing, but I'd be interested in council's perspective, at least as it occurs to you at the moment.
One question I have, Chris, is what was the date? What's the date of, so to speak, submission? And what kind of content are you looking for and in what form?
So it's roughly October 22nd. That's the last date of the public meetings for the Independent Redistricting Commission. The sooner you can get information to them, the better, because they're trying to finalize their maps. So if you go to this representable.org drive map your, you can draw on the map and select a geographic area. And then you can insert a bunch of comments about why you think that's a community of interest. So you might circle like Olive Jordanelle and explain what it is about that, either recreationally or economically or whatever, that makes that a community of interest. You can also go to the Redistricting Commission website and comment on existing maps. So if you look at a proposed map for a House plan or a Senate plan and you see it's splitting a community or keeping it together, you can comment, you know, your preferences. Do you like it? Do you not like it? So there's great ways to submit your feedback online at both of these websites. And you can also just submit that same sort of comment with your legislator. So it's, there's multiple ways, and I guess I would pick the one that is the easiest for you to work with. The meeting that we're having on Wednesday, we're going to walk through the process of drawing one of these community of interest maps and getting it submitted. So if you want extra help with that, I'd recommend attending the Wednesday meeting.
So Chris, this is the mayor here. I actually got a note on that and did it as an individual, not as a representative of the town. I just did it as a resident and gave some opinions, and I submitted a map. But you've raised some really good questions tonight that makes me want to tweak my map. How do I do that?
So you can submit another one.
Okay.
Is probably the easiest way.
Okay.
You can also send an email to the Redistricting Commission at uirccomments@utah.gov. That's uirccomments@utah.gov.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Chris, this is Chris Byer. Good evening.
Hey.
Does a submission from an individual carry different weight than a submission from an entity like a town?
Yes, likely. And it probably carries different weight depending on whether you're talking to the independent commission or the redistricting committee. If you can say as a town that you've had a town conversation, you're submitting that, I think they're really paying attention to that, recognizing that you're representing your constituents. But what they're doing is they're taking all of the community of interest maps and they're overlaying them as a GIS layer. So you can actually see the areas and you can see if a lot of people have circled the same area as a community of interest. So having lots of people submit kind of a similar area also adds some weight.
Are we supposed to, or is it best if we submit to both the Independent Redistricting Commission or separate from the Legislative Committee? Because they're totally different and separate from one another, right?
They are, and this is a new process that's being set up this year. So if you have opinions on how that process works, and since we're kind of navigating how it works, I would submit your comments to both. The redistricting committee, the legislature has not been playing up this idea of community of interest as much as the commission has. So they don't have a way to submit a community of interest to the legislature, but you can talk about your community still and wanting to keep it together, for instance.
Okie dokie. Yeah, I participated with a lot of folks locally with that ballot initiative, getting signatures, et cetera, to to be able to vote for the Independent Redistricting Commission. So I don't recall all of the language of everything that was in that legislation, but I thought the Independent Redistricting Commission actually had the ability to make the boundaries. But now that I'm thinking about it, is this ultimately going to be up to the Legislative Redistricting Committee, who ultimately does it? They get to accept or reject the advice of the commission?
Correct. So the initial proposition said that the commission drew the maps and those were the boundaries. The compromise that was worked out at the legislative session afterward with better boundaries says that the committee needs to wait to make a decision on maps until the commission submits their report. So the commission will be submitting the report on November 1st, but that the legislature gets the final choice and they are not required to accept a map from the commission. Now, you're very welcome, if you feel that they should accept those maps, please comment on that if that's how you feel.
Yeah, I missed that in the news, right? All that stuff that happened after. We
Yeah,
as voters voted for that legislation, that it became, well, going to call it watered down after that. I actually missed that. So that's very disappointing.
it is.
Um,
Well, I agree that it is. Leadership is not taking that perspective. Leadership Park City we're trying to keep it nonpartisan and open. So what I
Well,
would
this
say
is nonpartisan. I know what you mean.
Yeah,
You're trying not to take a side, and you certainly don't want to be getting on the wrong side of any legislators. And I understand your position, but I'm just, stating my disappointment as a voter and also someone who participated in gathering signatures for this, that ultimately, and working with better boundaries and et cetera. Yeah, really quite disappointed that it's going to become partisan in the end, which is what we were trying to avoid. So
I do think there's still room for the public to speak up and say, and ask the legislature, let them know that we're watching and ask them to stick to the intent of that legislation. How effective that
Sure,
is depends
sure.
on how many of us speak up, right?
Yeah, you can only bang your head against the wall so many times. So, yes, so I would send a note to my senator, state representative, and also the Senate president and Speaker of the House. But, I've done that in the past and very, yeah. So it's not a single person expressing an opinion seems to not carry a lot of weight, whereas an organization such as Leadership Park City or maybe Hideout as a town, who actually submit, as an entity of sorts, seems like a good idea, really good idea. I can say, I know the mayor asked for us to express our opinions. I, for a long time, have been saying that the folks in Hideout identify more with Park City than we do with Heber City. We identify more with Summit County than Wasatch County. However, things are changing. We've got a lot of population coming in around the Jordanelle. And I think we have, as a community of interest, I think the area around the Jordanelle, which includes Wasatch County, members of Wasatch County, unincorporated areas of Wasatch County, the MIDA project areas, the town of Hideout, we all have things in common. We're all missing the same things, being able to send kids to school that are anywhere near where they live, without getting an exception. We've got, we have a lot in common. I think the areas around the Jordanelle will all end up struggling with many or most of the same problems. I do want to say I really appreciate Leadership Park City. I was an applicant in 2015, but rejected on September 18th in 2015. because apparently I didn't have the credentials they were looking for. Even though I told them on my application that I was intending to run for council for Hideout. I did attend the following February. There was a one-day mini leadership, which I thought was fantastic. And, very supportive of that organization. But, I guess they can't select everybody.
They often recommend that to not take a rejection as a don't apply again. They say most people don't get in their first try.
Yeah, I know. But, I ran for council and now I don't have time to participate in Leadership Park City because all of my, discretionary time is spent here now with the town. So, but I do want to say that I do appreciate the program. I'm glad it's not so Park City centric anymore because it's not all about Park City. It's about the whole region, including some in Wasatch County, because that's where people live. And things happen. So then there's a question then for, I guess, the mayor. If we've got a little bit of time, sounds like we have
Week.
a week.
Yep.
To kind of get together and try to submit something from the town. Maybe it will have a little bit more weight than each of us submitting as individuals. With the drawing our community of interest map. The question is, do we have agreement? I'd like to hear from, from Ralph and Bob about what they think about the communities of interest, if they've had any time to think about that.
I have not, but I think it's a good idea. And Chris, it sounds like you're all over this right here. I think we ought to take a look. Hideout, this whole area, this whole Jordanelle back is eventually going to become larger than Park City if the planned growth happens. So I think it's definitely a community of interest. I think most of us are from somewhere else, and maybe we'd like to see some changes to the way Utah constructs its laws and does businesses, make it a little more mainstream. That's all I gotta say.
From my end, I just wish we had more time, and I only caught up with this from, information I've read in the paper or, on some of the social media, but I didn't realize we're up against the wall. I tend to be of the nature that I don't like to make decisions totally for someone else. And that's why, I kind of did that survey and we did the referendum so people could vote, people could input. And I don't think we're going to have enough time for that. I wish we'd even do a survey, because even if you get, 50 or 60 people in a town this size, as we did, in the survey I did for the referendum, it almost matched exactly to what the feelings were. You have to get a reasonably statistical portion to do that. I just don't know if we have time. And there's so many new people coming in that, it'd be really interesting to get their opinions, even if we just got some sharing. So I just don't know if we're going to have time for, public meeting on this. I doubt, we only have 15 people on the call here. So the ability to even get this information out, to understand what a group of opinions are, not just the council, I think would be important to me.
Well, I think Ralph, we can do a blast, an email blast, whatever. I think we can sort of put some buckets together. I was doing that while Chris was talking. Both Chris's were talking, actually. So I'm thinking we would maybe, to make it quick, we might make like 4 or 5 or 6 buckets. So one is just Hideout. The other would be Hideout in North Jordanelle, i.e. the stuff up above us on 248 that's in unincorporated Wasatch, up to and including our potential annexed area. It could be Hideout North Jordanelle and Mayflower. It could be Hideout North Jordanelle, Mayflower, and and Summit. I mean, we could put 4 or 5 kind of things together just to sort of see where people are leaning. You know, are we, or is it one big giant area, including Park City? You know, so that was my thought, is we might pick just sort of high level buckets, because we don't have a lot of time and we can't draw really fine lines by saying, okay, well, Hideout and this, but not Deer Mountain, for example, or whatever. It doesn't, it's just, I don't think that's helpful in sort of getting a sense of the community. So my thought was maybe we just grab those half a dozen categories and test the waters and see what kind of feedback we get in the next week.
Yeah, we'd have to do this real fast. I agree with the approach, and maybe open the survey up with a little bit of information, because I'm thinking a lot of people don't, may not be keeping up with this, may not care, but you got to give them the knowledge. And there's a lot of really smart people in this town, so they'll pick up on it fast, and to get their input, I think. And it would just be for Hideout. And that's, the last survey I did, I just, restricted it to Hideout residents.
Right.
And I think that's the way to go. But we probably need to put our heads together here real fast. What does that look like? What does that survey information look like? And then make those choices. Would you favor these 2 out of this 6 versus these 2 out of this 6? Something like that, I'd say. So you get people to prioritize and see if we can't get some kind of feedback from 50 or 60 or 70 people,
Yeah, well, that would be great if we get that many. But Ralph, I tell you that having participated in the mapping as a resident, the information at the Independent Redistricting Commission is very good. They did a great job explaining so. I mean, I would say we would basically steal shamelessly from them.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Because they did a good job explaining what a community of interest was and how you might want to think about it, and then just say, your Hideout representatives would love to know, elected officials would love to know, on a big bucket basis, where do you think that we should draw a line? And
I totally
give your
agree.
answers, A, B, C, D, E.
Totally agree about that. And usually people, when they receive an email and say, we need this right away for this following reason, they'll respond. So you tend to get the big grouping up front.
That's the other reason I think the bucketing would be quick, because it's quick. I mean, it's basically one question, a little bit of pre-reading, one question. Is it Hideout plus A, Hideout plus B, Hideout plus A and B, how about, whatever.
Yeah.
And kind of get a sense and send it all back, and we can collate it, and next week make a decision.
Well, would the town, I mean, would the town like to take this on? I mean, I did this obviously for the referendum because it was separate, but we could put this on our, front page of the website.
Yes, exactly.
And then send out an email, put it on the front page of the website, make it real fast and simple, cut and paste what you just mentioned that exists, and then get some feedback.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
I love that idea. So the question is, who could work on it tomorrow?
That's it. Some of us have day jobs here too.
I understand. I mean, this is something I would have staff work on. Unfortunately,
Yeah,
Friday is usually an off day
I
for
know.
a lot of our staff, but I'll do some arm twisting and offer days where they can, alternate days that they can be off. And get something together tomorrow.
When I did mine, I did and it was very simple. Ask as few questions as you possibly can, super simplify it. And, to be very honest with you, I'm not a survey expert, but I did have John he did some of the computer work for me on that one. So
I'm very familiar with like Survey Monkey and that kind of stuff.
I didn't buy you got to pay for Survey Monkey. Anyway, we can take that offline. And I'll be glad to take a call tomorrow if anybody needs my help.
Okay,
from what we did last time. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well-
Mayor, may I suggest for the survey itself, give, have whatever your buckets are, Hideout plus everything, and allow people to check off the things that they feel are part of the community of interest, and
Exactly.
as many as they want to check, or up to however many, I don't know. I think check as many as you want. So it'd be Hideout, it would be, as you mentioned, the unincorporated areas, our neighboring HOAs. Go around to the minor project area, include
Mayflower.
include Mayflower.
Yeah.
Include Summit County, include Park City, include Heber City.
And Camas.
And Camas, go ahead and include
Yeah.
Camas. Yeah, yeah. Make it as broad as you can, right? Just to
Yeah.
see what you get back. My guess is maybe you'll get a few Camas check marks, but you'll probably get a lot more. You'll get a lot more.
Yeah.
Like if you put Kimball Junction in there.
Yeah.
Since we all shop there. You might get that as well.
Snyderville, yeah.
I don't know
Which
if
is
people know
part
what
of Park
Snyderville
City.
is. Wait, I don't, people,
That's
I
technically part of
lived in the
Park City.
basin, okay, for 10 years before I lived in Hideout. People that are new to Hideout don't know what Snyderville is.
Okay.
They only know Park City and Kimball Junction. You could say Summit County or something, if you,
Yeah.
you know, or something, I'm just, maybe,
Okay.
but anyway, just a few suggestions on how you might
Okay.
make that one question survey with multiple choice.
No, I like the idea of pick the
Answers.
boxes that you think are
Yep.
are portions of the geography that would be a community of interest
Yes.
in your mind. Yeah. Okay.
I mean, I think our challenge might be limiting, how big are the communities of interest, Chris Campbell? How many thousands of people?
Well, so it depends, right? So a house district is 43,000 people. So community of interest in a house district is going to be smaller. That was a 43,000. A Senate district is 112,000. So you can go bigger. Maybe you're starting to talk at the county level for Senate districts.
Oh, then we need two. Do we need two questions then?
No, the community of interest is the community of interest, regardless of whether, in my mind, whether it's a Senate district or a House district. I mean,
Okay,
that's,
no, it's fair. I agree.
I'm going to toss in one more wrinkle and you can decide whether it's worth for the survey, but there is also the state school board districts. And so
We need to ask about that for sure, because that's an area of pain for
right
Hideout.
now, your Wasatch district is in the same state school board district as North and South Summit, but that's a different state school board district than Park City School District.
That's a state school board district is different from a school district?
Right. So there's 15 state school board districts, and they're combinations of school districts.
So we're essentially gerrymandered with our state school board district, right? Because we're in a different one than the people that are 5 minutes away from us in Park City.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know,
So
Phil,
That might complicate the survey.
that,
but
that
that
adds
is-
a lot of complication, Chris, in a very short amount of time. And I'm not sure that's a good can of worms to open if we want to get a quick feedback.
I can argue that our problems with having no local schools
No
is a
doubt,
substantial problem for Hideout.
no doubt, but it is a substantial problem, but we are in the same district now as the neighborhoods, including Summit County and Wasatch County and ourselves, and the only one that's separate is Park City. So, and our solution is not Park City schools, I don't believe. I believe our solution is the county schools system, one or both. So at the moment, those districts are okay at the state level. So I don't,
Okay, I'll accept that logic for now.
I don't know. But we want to get something quick.
Yep.
I think you're absolutely correct that the folks, the people, the nearby Summit folks, the nearby Summit folks, I believe, at the high school level, leverage Park City School District. Because there are high schools in South Summit and North Summit, but not in sort of Central Summit. So they go to Park City schools, or at least a portion of them do. So folks in Chris, what was the neighborhood you were talking about earlier? Not Summit, across from Jeremy.
Pinebrook,
Pinebrook. I think they go to Park City schools,
they do.
Yeah.
but there's
So,
Summit.
so does, yeah, but everybody in the basin goes to Park City schools. Jeremy Ranch,
Right.
Pinebrook,
Right.
even
But
as far over as
Camas doesn't, and
Summit Park.
Kiowa and those places don't. So
East of 40 doesn't actually, so Promontory doesn't, and the new Silver Creek Village that's going in east of 40 is actually part of South Summit with, in with Camas.
Yeah, exactly. That 40 is a real divider there.
yeah. So
All right, well, no, good. You're right. I think we'll do what we can in the amount of time that we have. It's a good step in the right direction for us.
well, I want to thank Ken for reaching out and asking for time. Super appreciated it. It's a pretty important thing. So thanks for educating your elected officials. And Chris, thanks for also jumping in and giving us all the roll up your sleeve info. That's great. Really appreciate both of you being on tonight and making us aware of our need to get busy in a hurry.
I just wish it was last month, Ken and Chris.
Yeah, believe me, so do we, but thank you for being so receptive to this. Again, we apologize for the lack of timeliness, but this has been a massive project in a very compressed period of time. And Chris and his team have done a great job. And Chris Bear, don't feel that bad. I mean, apparently they take 1 out of 3 people. And I kind of feel like I'm the affirmative action person for this year because I'm like 30 years older than like the average person in the program. But maybe the Council on Aging or something had something to do with getting me in. But I think we should really, in less than a year, truly encourage more people from the town to apply and connect with this. It's an important program.
Thanks again for that reminder, Ken. Carol Hazelton on our council was in class 26 as well.
Oh, great.
So we have the town administrator and one of our council members who are program graduates from the last class. So we're not completely disconnected. All right.
Well,
thanks again, guys. We
Thank you.
appreciate
We'll
you.
sign off.
certainly you're welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting, but
I've got to go cook dinner. Thanks again.
all right, thanks, guys.
Bye.
All right, I'm going to share back to the agenda. Okay. Alicia, I'll talk to you about what we can do tomorrow and who we can leverage to help put some thoughts together.
Okay, that sounds good. Just so you know, Carol is on now.
Oh, welcome, Carol. Could I hear your voice so I know that you're here?
You may
Carol.
need to remind her how to unmute her iPhone.
She was on. Now I think she's gone. Oh, there she is. Yeah.
So is it *6 or *9? I can't remember. *6, right?
Yes.
So Carol, if you're hearing us, *6 would unmute your phone if you'd like to, so I can hear your voice and know it's you. And I believe Polly's on as well. So
Yeah, I'm here.
I'll try and unmute Carol. Maybe I can get her to unmute. Carol. Maybe Alicia, you can work on that if you don't mind in the background while we move on. Okay, the next item on our agenda is an update regarding noxious weeds. This thanks to Carol Custerly, who's been leading this effort. Put some data together. So an update for council. So this letter went out in June of 2021, which is late. It should have gone out in April or May, but we got it out in June. The letter was the standard letter reminding everyone that whether you're an individual lot owner or homeowner or in a shared community, that weed control is required. So we sent out to the individual lot owners in this list here with these subdivisions. And then we also went to the developers and HOAs of GCD and Shoreline, Homes and Dear Waters, CPA for portions of the original hideout that are managed under that requirement. Soaring Hawk, Solstice, which is claim, Todd Hollow, Sundown Ridge is the name of the property that's going in at the end of Silver Sky, and obviously the town of Hideout, because we have some property that needs to be maintained as well. So as you can see here, the results were not great. So 274 lots listed. Of an individual owners, only 36 reports, confirmations were received that they took action. And then of the 8 developers, only 4 of those. It says 4, but I'm only seeing 3 here. Unless I'm missing something. Oh, GCD as well. Sorry, there it is. So 4 of those are feedback. So obviously a letter's not working.
Mayor, did we send out a single letter? Like a one-time sent the letter
yeah,
out and
yeah.
waited?
We did, Chris. As far
So
as I
there
know.
wasn't a reminder and then a third and last reminder. Otherwise, we're sending somebody out to spray and you're going to be charged kind of letter?
Yeah, no, I don't think so. To the best of my knowledge, there was just the one. So we did get some feedback when we did contact some people. One of which was just that. So we need a reminder process. Second was they didn't feel that the letter was clear, even though we talk about land or property and not just houses. There were people who have undeveloped property, i.e. land, who didn't believe that this applied to them. Although they're probably the ones that need it more than anybody, because people who generally have put their houses in have some landscape and are taking care of their weeds. So so we need to be clearer based on feedback on undeveloped land.
Do you think we should learn from the feedback, write a better series of letters, get them all
Yes.
prepped,
Yeah.
and then try again next year and see
Yeah,
if we get a better
Yeah, my
response?
goal would be to start in March.
Yeah, I think it's worth doing another letter, clarifying all the, incorporating all the feedback, going through a process of 3 letters, planning out when they should go out, sending them out according to plan,
Yeah,
and
March, April,
then
May, basically.
taking action. Just being, I guess, a little more organized. I think it was a good first attempt, and with learnings, and we should capitalize on those learnings and try to do it better next year. And do we have any metrics we're going for so we know if we're successful or not?
Can I speak to that? I think we made huge strides by getting our structure in place, because now we have the backbone to enforce. So notice is key, of course. And I think since we're not getting the awareness by the letter, we pick up where we left off and say, just keep reminding them that this is something we intend to enforce, and we have a system in place, and we notice it 3 times, and then we're ready to go.
Yeah, no, that's a great point, Jan. Yes, you put a system in place. Let's use that system, and I know I often miss emails, because I have 20,000 emails in my inbox, my personal one, which I'm ashamed to admit, but I often miss things. I know there are a lot of other people that miss things, or maybe they don't think it applies to them. And so I do think crafting the messages, each one more insistent than the one before in terms of, hey, if you don't respond, here's the penalty. You have until X date to respond, and then giving them, giving people a little bit of a second chance should they just be a little bit late. But I do agree, Jan. We got the structure in place. Let's leverage it and prep. Is there any reason why I know weeds are the last thing you think about when it starts snowing, but is there any way to get this prepped now while we're thinking of it?
Yeah, I was thinking, Chris,
right?
that we would send based on the data that Carol's collected, that we would send a note to everyone saying, apparently you didn't take us seriously, or I'll find a nicer way to say that. But, the participation this year was well below the desired requirement. And here's what's going to happen as we enter into spring 2022.
Yeah, I
You'll
think
get your first letter in March, you'll get your second letter in April, and in May, if it's not done and your stuff's not turned in, we're going to start enforcing it through citation, or however the process works. And make sure that people are at least aware of it now, and then they'll get a reminder starting in March. At least that's my thought.
Yeah, I think that's good. I think, if you work into the date where you need to have had responses, otherwise it becomes too late to simply spray. Then you have to spray and then, capture the flowers that are about to go to seed. So if we could back into that, drop dead date,
Yeah.
which I think is sometime in June, maybe later June, but there's got to be a date of no return. No action means, we're going to send someone out, you're going to be billed for it. And if you don't pay it, then what happens? Does it go on their tax
Goes on
bill?
their tax bill.
Yeah, you just have to say that to people. If you say this is going to go on your tax bill, and then have an attorney sign the letter, that usually is enough to scare people into action.
Wow.
Can anybody hear me now?
Yes, Carol, we can.
Oh, great. Okay. I just wanted to make a note that Wasatch County has available a calendar. It happens to be a 2021 calendar. I don't know if they're going to do it for 2022, but it's entitled Best Practices in Weed Control. And they list the major weeds that we have around here. And they also tell you what you can do to mitigate them or to control them. So I don't know if we can get copies of the 2021 calendar and distribute it, but it does tell people best management practice for getting rid of the major weeds. Just a thought.
That's fantastic. And Carol Custerly, I believe, is on the weed board.
She is.
She's a member of the weed board. I'm listed as a member, although I have never attended a meeting, but we should be able to work with the weed board and get that 2022 calendar and get those specific dates. I love that suggestion, Carol. And also, being able to provide a link URL in the letter. Here's more information.
Right. Okay.
Yep.
I think that's a great idea, Carol. We'll ask Carol to check into that calendar, see if they're doing one for 2022. The dates
Okay,
aren't.
I'm happy to drop it off at the office too, so she can.
That would be awesome. Thank you. That'd be very kind of you.
Okay.
That'd
Maybe
be great.
scan it and put it online.
Yeah, well, I will find out more about it, Ralph, and whether it's already online in they have a department stuff. What I'm thinking is it might be we might decide to do it as a mailing for the community. We'd put the Hideout logo on the front and piggyback on the work they've done and make sure that every household gets one.
Like a community calendar in hard copy? so to
Just
speak?
it'd be, I don't know, we're not adding other events. It would be whatever Wasatch has done, but would be delivered to their door.
Uh-huh. Like
This
it,
is,
yeah.
it's really a pretty calendar. I mean, the one I'm looking at, it has, it's
Oh.
heavy stock and it's got photos and then it shows close-up photos of the weeds and
Hey, Thistle and Bloom is terrifically attractive.
right. Okay.
Maybe we can encourage people to grow some more.
Just so you know, there have been many photos of Hideout in the media, and there's been thistle and bloom in the background. It always is disappointing to
Well,
see.
you're going to see it at the Jordanelle too, Chris. I mean, it's
Right.
hard to take a
It
picture.
is
and
the
know what
most prevalent weed in Wasatch County.
All right. Well, those are great thoughts. And, we wanted to bring you an update. Thanks for the feedback. Any other comments from council on weeds?
I just have to say, we've been talking about weeds every year. This is my 4th year on the council, and I just want to, piggyback onto what Jan said earlier, and to, commend Carol Custerly for her letter and the mayor and the town for, each year we get better and better, and we get, some response. It's definitely was looking better this year than the year before, which was better than the year before that. So I think, we're never going to win the war against weeds, but we're certainly showing improvement.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks for observing that. I felt the same way this year as well. I thought, particularly we've had better cooperation from the HOAs, which is great, because they cover a lot of land. So it's great that they've started to step up. Okay. We'll move on to another discussion items, which is, oh man, I messed up, but we'll come back to that. So Carol, before I move on to that, we want to move back. There's a discussion, Carol, back in item 1. We talked about moving the town council meeting from November 11th to November 10th, because November 11th is a holiday. And we wondered if you had availability on November 10th to do the town council meeting instead of November 11th.
It's already in my calendar.
So I'm going to take that as a yes. That's good.
That's a yes. Yeah.
So
I already,
apparently we do have a quorum for the 10th. So sounds like we're in good shape for that, Alicia. Let's make that happen. Thanks for that.
And then I hope Bob can join us.
He's going to be in Europe. I think it's,
If he's able to, that would be
Yeah.
wonderful.
I think
It's not, yeah, it's a hardship, I know.
1 a.m. is tough.
You might not like what you see. in the background.
Well, I don't know, Bob.
I don't
You
want the video, Bob. Believe me, I don't want the video.
might have to stay off video, just
All
stay
right.
on mute.
I'll
Just
do
say
my best.
yes or no. Yeah.
And
Okay.
note that it's going to start at 6:30. Thank
Right.
you, Guy. You're accommodating me, so I
Yeah,
appreciate
we did
that.
mention that earlier. I'm sorry, Carol. I forgot to remind that. But yeah,
That's fine.
6:30. Okay.
So
Thanks.
is that the next, that's when we'll be accepting, we'll be interviewing the candidates for the
Yes.
council vacancy on November 10th.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, do we, I guess who will be checking with them, the candidates, to make sure they're
Alicia.
available?
Alicia's already done that.
Okay.
So that's all. She's already tested those waters. Yeah, we could have a pretty global call, because I think we have I think one will be in Hawaii, one of the candidates will be in Hawaii and Bob in Ireland. I mean, we're going to have a good spread of time zones. But that's okay. I'll be on the East Coast, so we'll have lots of time zones. The next item is discussion of council compensation. And we have talked about this multiple times. Last time we asked Alicia to do a bit more homework on that. She's done a bit more homework on that. There's a tremendous amount of data here. You get a sense, I mean, she's covered a lot of towns at the mayor position. So this is mayor salaries and whether they get health benefits. She's done it for council members and whether they get health benefits and other things, state retirement plan and so forth, and other options. And she did it for the planning commission. What we have talked about is whether or not we think offering some greater compensation than what we do today would help to attract additional talent to the an interest in supporting the community in roles of either elected officials or appointed officials. We've had a gap for some months now for a missing council member. The planning commission is still one alternate short, even after many months. So, it could be, this could be an incentive to encourage folks who may say it's just too much time and I don't know if I want to do that without feeling like there's some remuneration of some sort. I don't know. So, but I don't want to get into the numbers specifically tonight. There's a pretty broad range on these things. I'd be interested in asking each council person to propose back whether or not you think we should ask the budget committee I think we ought to ask the budget committee going into the 22-23 budget season, to build in something in these roles, at least to see if it's, what happens to our budget if we were to select an amount for each of those folks. But I'd like to get from the council, with all the data that Alicia's provided here, your opinion. Doesn't have to be tonight. You can just send us a note saying, I think, 5,000 a month would be terrific, or whatever the right number is. So, I mean, because you see numbers from 0 to 15, 20,000 a year, 80,000 a year for the big cities, obviously. I mean, Tooele is pretty significant.
I think this information is amazing that Alicia put together. It is all over the map. I don't think we should be looking at Tooele or South Salt Lake. I think we should be looking at the smaller towns,
right,
and looking at the size of the cities that we're going to become, in the next 5 years, we'll say, projecting how large will we be, because the amount of work involved on the planning commission, with the council, with the mayor, really is all predicated on the amount of growth that we're anticipating in the next, in the future. And the more growth we have, the more work there is. So
that's a good point, Chris. So for baseline purposes for everyone, I mean, we have 2,300 units approved. And if the annexation is successful, we'll pick up another 600 units. So call it 3,000 units for Hideout. If we assume 2 per unit, that's 6,000 people. So it gives you a sense of, they're not all going to be full timers, but it gives you a sense of, the size of the town that you might want to think about as you're looking at numbers.
I would suggest that we do need to look at compensation, because, and it's very spotty, right? Some planning commissioners and council members do more work than others. The mayor, it seems like your job could be 60 hours a week, 80 hours a week if you let it be. But, with a part-time mayor, and
Not if you want the mayor alive,
not if you want the mayor alive, right? But we've already, I think, gone beyond, the old small town $50 a meeting for council and nothing for planning commission. I think that's wholly inadequate at this point, and that we should be considering compensation. And I would love to hear what the budget committee has to say about what the town can afford.
Well, I think we have to do both ways, Chris. I think we also have to throw in, our sense of what range that we're looking at for these guys to build into the budget. I mean, if I'm not going to ask them to come up with salaries, I think it has to come from us. To say, look, we'd like to pay something on the order of, I don't know, $1,000 a month or whatever it is for these roles, or, $500 a month or something, whatever the number that we all put some thoughts to, and see how that racks up. There are also, as Jan will tell us, there are thresholds in which, once you go above a certain amount, you then become eligible for the state retirement plan, become eligible for health benefits, et cetera, which increases the cost of the town because there's matching costs in there. So I think so. Jan, can you remind us of those thresholds offhand?
Right now, as of this year, it's 21,000 and change. And you can meet that with a variety of methods, like Heber and Midway use board commissions to pay for part of that. So sitting on different committees or boards, they have compensation, and that's included in the calculation for becoming URS eligible.
So URS eligible is 21,000 and change, you said, and
Yeah.
that URS eligible means
You
what
become-
exactly? What does that mean exactly? URS eligible?
You become part of the Utah retirement system. So your wages are matched by town compensation, and there's 401k type benefits that accrue with your service.
So Jan, that URS, does that includes health benefits, then you're saying, and pension, or what? I'm a little still unclear.
It's just retirement, Utah retirement system.
Okay, so it's just retirement. I
But
mean
we
pension.
could throw in health insurance. I mean, that's certainly possible.
Health insurance, you have to be 20 hours a week or more of work to qualify for the state health insurance plan.
Would you say the mayor's job is 20 hours a week or more?
Absolutely.
So I would argue if a
Could
mayor
be.
wanted health insurance as part of the total compensation, obviously we'd have to talk about, because we want to encourage people that are before they're Medicare eligible who need health insurance to perhaps, think about that as a piece of compensation for the mayor's position. Potentially. So I could argue, out of all of the positions here, the mayor seems, and mayor, correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems to require the most hours of any individual position. And then, council has lots of reading to do and, committees to serve on and meetings to attend, and the planning commission, depending on the nature of the agendas, has the potential to do a lot of land use considerations and recommendations. So I do think it's important that we make sure we understand all the different types of compensation, which would include health benefits for those folks who, like I said, are not Medicare eligible, to consider, for a job that does take more than 20 hours a week. I don't think on a regular basis, like either the council or the planning commission spends 20 hours a week consistently. I think we're much more part-time than the mayor's position. It's a little less, it seems quite a bit less demanding.
I would tell you, Chris, that, we've been working hard on bringing a greater level of capability to the staff over the last 4 years. I spent a lot of time at the beginning basically being the engineer. That has, we now have engineers. I spent a lot of time on public works. We now have, a solid public works team. We had a solid team before, but it was very thin. Now we have more people. So, there's more ability to delegate. So, it's all relatively new. I'm not sure where my hours are yet. I'm hoping that with folks like Jan and Tim and now Daniel, who's on the call tonight, and I want to be sure and introduce him on the next topic, so you all get to see Daniel. That some of that demand is going to come off of me, and it may be possible. But you're right about attracting folks to the role. I am not a young person anymore. I am on Medicare, and at least I'll stop there as my age. But so yeah, it would be great to have some folks who who want to come forward, because I don't know if everybody, we've had a lot of council turnover, not because they get upset with us, but because life happens. People move, that kind of stuff. So it'd be nice to know. I think it'd be great for our community to know that there's opportunities to stay in the community, to get some remuneration, and participate. So I'm with you. I'm trying to find the right number there. The impact is going to be interesting. I mean, once we go past these thresholds, we start to incur costs, not just beyond base salary. So it gets to be, a noticeable budget item, but we'll let the budget committee work on that and see what happens to our tax rate in order to support the ability. We're basically would be more than doubling. I mean, if we just stop at the mayor, it's one thing, but if we're going to compensate planning commission and council and so forth, even if they don't go over the 21K, we'll be probably doubling our salary demands doing that, because we've got 7 planning commission, 5 council, that kind of stuff. So, but it'll be interesting. We'll run it through the budget and see how it looks. I'm supportive.
Sorry, Phil, didn't mean to interrupt.
That's all right,
you.
Ralph. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I'll put my budget committee hat on because it's Jan and myself. Kurt's left town. He was on the committee, and Gwen Wetzel, and I'm not sure of her status. So it's kind of the two of us. One thing I would say here is And the other data point I would like to see, we've got population statistics against this. So our budget, our revenue intake is about $1.5 million a year. If you take 1% of that, and that's 15,000. So you divide that up amongst, the 20 some folks in some kind of proportional basis based upon the time that they spent. If you do 2%, that's 30,000. I would lobby here, and I'm going to put this in, and I have to give it some more thought. I would not go above 2% at this point of our budget until we know where our revenues are coming from, because we don't have a lot of revenue coming in. And I'd say, but 2% gives you, 30,000. I would rather start on the low end and maybe start at 1, so we could gradually increase this year to year without blowing our budget. But that's just that's my rough back of the envelope math going into this. And what I would like to see here is, and Alicia, maybe you could help us on this. We've got the population. What I would like to see are the towns in our population range. So call it, 2,000 to 7,000. What are their budgets? What are their revenues? So we have another benchmark against drawing our conclusions as to how much they're spending as proportionate to their budgets, and not just on the mayor. Well, we could just add those up real fast, do the math, and understand what percentage of their budget are they spending on their elected or appointed officials. And that would give me two, if I was sitting on the budget committee, that would give me two really good points that I could then gauge how we should do ours from a financial standpoint. Does that make sense?
That's a good thought, Ralph. I like it.
And we don't have to do a lot of homework here. Just
No,
get
just
the range of towns that we're fitting in, get,
Yeah.
10, 12 towns, and just get that data, and then start populating what their revenues are in those towns. And then we'll do the reverse math here from their mayor, the number of, elected officials, and they're, very simple.
Okay. Other thoughts? Thanks, guys. Very helpful. Thanks, Alicia, for pulling all this together. This is great data. Very helpful.
The next question, though, is I always want to know what the next step is. So does the budget committee meet again in October, or are they meeting in
No,
November?
budget committee meets right after the beginning of the year. We start that budget process. I think we'll get the other data together. What I'd like to see, as I said, is each council member to give us, some thoughts on the key roles. So mayor, council member, planning commission, based on the data that we're going to provide. So you've got some of the data. I think Ralph's thought of adding the town's budget is a great idea for towns in our range, in the 1,000 or 2,000 people to 5,000, 6,000 people range, just to get a sense, because that's roughly the next. We're not going to be 10,000 people in the next 3 or 4 years. It's going to take longer than that. So
Yeah, I agree with what Ralph added in the 2,000 to 7,000, 2,000 to 6,000 range. Seems like the right population size. So that gives us some constraints. At least it gives us a place to start and a place for the budget committee to look at.
And it gives us some averages. We just put it into a quick spreadsheet, 15 rows, and and you've got those two variables, and we can do medians and averages and see where we want to sit in relationship to that, so to speak.
That sounds good. Now, the budget committee's meeting, you said in January, but not scheduled yet?
no, not scheduled yet.
And then who's the chairman, or who?
Well, Ralph actually is the chair. It was Kurt, but when he left, Ralph became the chair. Chris and I sit on that committee. We had Glynis Tahansky on that team last year as well. We haven't circulated the request for other participants yet. That'll come. So
But we should be able to do this
We
math
meet- we meet-
in like a week. I don't see that being really difficult unless we have a hard time getting budget information from these 10 to 12.
No, that's not, that's a matter of public, public
Yeah,
data. That's not the issue. The
yeah,
issue is, I don't know if our staff has time to do it in a week where you're out there trying
Yeah,
to get the
yeah,
survey out and
yeah,
some other
I
things
hear
we
you.
said are pressing. So, we'll get it over the course of the next few weeks, but it won't happen. It won't happen this coming week because they've got other things to get done based on our earlier discussion on redistricting. So,
So should we take this up, and this will be after the election. The council will take this up again after a budget committee makes a recommendation in January. Is that
Yeah.
what we're saying? So it'll be the February council meeting?
well, I think,
probably.
we will put it, we will look at it in the budget process and they will tell us, budget committee will say to me, hey, do we want to bring this forward to council as part of our 22 budgeting? And if so, here's the impact on like truth and taxation and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, we'll come to you with the impact of that on the budget, whether we can survive another year without a tax increase or not. I think that's going to be doubtful given what's going on in the world around us these days, but we'll see.
Just for information's sake, when you get to that point, you do have to have 7 days public notice and a public comment hearing before you take action. So you'll just need to work that into whenever the date is for the meeting.
Oh yeah, well, we have to do that for the budget too, Cameron, so it's all part of the process. So yeah, we're with you on that. All right, other thoughts on compensation before we move on?
I just want to be clear, do you need us to respond each council member separately via email
Yes. that
to
would be
you
wonderful.
or to Alicia or to the
To
Ralph
Alicia is
or
fine.
whomever?
To Alicia.
Okay.
Once we have the data, we'll send out what we want you to do with it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next thing we have is an update on this, on the street parking ordinance. I think while I was away in September, Chris, you introduced Tim Dixon to the council. I also want to introduce tonight, is Daniel on? Was he on? He was on.
Yes, I'm on.
Okay, so I want to introduce Daniel Allen. Daniel is our new, there's Daniel. Hey, Dan.
Yeah.
So Dan is our new Director of Public Works. I'm really excited to bring Dan on board. Kent and Travis will report to Dan or Daniel. His email is Dan, so I'm starting to use Dan because he's dan@hideoututah.gov. But Daniel comes to us with terrific background. He's worked for South Jordan. He's worked for Summit. He got he's got a long career in public works. He brings deep experience in operations, and I'm really excited that he's on board. He's going to be super for us, just super for us. He also helps broaden our age demographic, which is great, since some of us are getting older and might decide to do something different someday. So it's nice to have you here, Daniel, and thanks again for joining the Town of Hideout. You're gonna do a great job for us.
It's exciting to have the opportunity to serve the community and do the things that need to be done and make things move forward.
Hey, Dan, welcome. I think this is perfect timing, right? Now that we're suddenly in winter and we're starting to think about maybe having a good winter snow season, and the mayor may not have to run the plow this year.
But we're hoping.
We're hoping.
We'll
We'll see.
Yeah, Mrs. Mayor will definitely give me demerits every time I go out to drive. No doubt about it.
Well, you're welcome to if you choose, but
Yeah.
my hope is you don't.
Hopefully we won't have to. We're working hard on some part-timers right now, so.
Okay.
as you know. So thanks again. Welcome, Daniel. So these guys have been working on street parking. And, you know, we'd seen some work earlier that was done by TO. We as a council kind of sent them back to the drawing board. And they did some thinking to try and help us come up with some ideas. Since Tim and Daniel has been on board, they've started to do some work as well. So I'm going to turn it over to Tim to kind of give us an update on where we are. And we're not quite ready to bring it all to you, but they've done some really nice work on primary and secondary streets, frequency of plowing, stuff like that. When do we go ballistic and start yanking cars off the road because they're getting in the way of clearing the streets and some stuff like that, which also has to go into our thinking around that. So Tim, if you would please.
Yeah, so thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council, for letting us talk a little briefly about this tonight. I know, like Mayor said, we've been working on it and including Cameron and his discussions. And so what we've done is we've come up with some edits to the town's existing parking ordinance to reflect some issues that we feel will help us move forward a little bit. One of them is provide for parking on one side of the street, on curbing if necessary, utilizing TO's report that they had for the parking study that they did back in December of last year. Another thing we've also talked about is some snow removal emergency routes. And so we've put that in there a little bit, kind of following the Park City ordinance and kind of how they do things in regards to what streets are the priority streets, what streets will be plowed in what time frame. And then if there is any vehicles on the street, it kind of gives us the option to citate and actually have towed if necessary. Mayor also asked me to look into just kind of some general language cleanup, which me and Cameron have done and are looking at. And then also some restrictions on parking, 48 hours, 72 hours, some commercial zones when we do have those in the future. So, and then the last thing that Mayor wanted us to do was look at a little bit, maybe about some resident visitor parking. And I know some towns, mountain towns, mountain cities that have the same type of roads that we do on a slope. They actually have some parking passes. And so we're kind of just looking at that, but we're just starting into that because it's going to be a larger effort than I think we have time for to kind of talk about tonight, but we are looking at possibly something like that, if that's something that council would like us to do in the future. So hopefully I haven't missed anything out of all those.
I think the other thing you have, Tim, is looking at the construction guys versus resident parking.
Yep, and thank you for that, Mayor. I did miss that. And so that is part of the, hopefully the ordinance, the construction mitigation ordinance that we're going to kind of bring together back to council here soon as soon as we get everybody's comments on that and work together. But that will kind of tie into the parking too. Again, like Mayor just mentioned, it goes hand in hand. It really does. And so we want to make sure that we're doing something that's going to be great and works for the town and works for the safety of the crews when we go out and snow plow it and also our residents. So I'm available for any questions that you guys might have. And Cameron, Cameron, I'm throwing you under the bus on this one too, but if Cameron might be able to jump in and Cameron, did I miss anything or you think we hit everything that we had talked about that Mayor had asked us to look into?
Yeah, I think you hit it all, and I'm happy to answer questions if there are some.
Yep. So we will give it back to you, council members and Mayor, for any questions.
All right. May I go first? Tom, I brought this up while I was pro tem. Time is of the essence, at least in my mind. Probably the other council members will agree, because once the snow starts falling, and if we have a big winter, we're going to have a lot of problems. We're going to have a lot of problems with I meant the snow that's going to stay around. we're gonna have a lot of problems. I'm less concerned about a neighbor, having visitors for a couple of days than I am about the construction parking, because this is an ongoing problem. It's going to be continuous, all through the winter. Various sites have different, crews on site, depending on whatever they're working on that day in that location for that project. And it's a big safety problem for us. And I just want to, convey to Cameron and Tim and Dan and the mayor, my own sense of urgency, because I just, having been here now for 6.5 years, each winter, depending on what's going on, at which site, it's just, besides being annoying and, potentially unsafe should there be an emergency, where roads sometimes actually get blocked. It's really compounded when the snow falls. So I would just like to stress that I don't know what else you have on your plates as far as a priority, but this feels like it's got to be up there amongst the top priorities to work on.
I think it's
And
about.
I'd add to that.
Sorry, go ahead, Ralph.
I was just going to say, I'd add to that. I totally agree with Chris. I think time is of the essence, not only for that reason, for all the reasons that Chris just said. I think this is going to be fairly or somewhat controversial in town. So again, I think we'd like to get something out into the public to get some opinions. And rather than just jumping all over it in one meeting, or, maybe we can even put something online, get some information, get some feedback right away. Because if we take a vote shortly after we, get this information and we have a mass, turnout or something, we're not really going to have a fair view of what folks have, because it may be just one crunch event. So again, time is of the essence, because we'd also like to get this information out, get some opinions, so we can also kind of massage those opinions on ourselves, and maybe there's some other good suggestions out there. You never know.
Thanks, Ralph. Let me suggest this, guys, then. What about we take a look at the two key items that we have to be most concerned about with the upcoming winter season. One is the plowing plan, and two, the construction guys. And as you mentioned, Chris, you're a little less worried about the residential ones, because you're right. I mean, typically the residential parking is short term. Somebody has a social event over the holidays and they got 6 or 8 cars parked outside for 4 hours. Or 6 hours, and while they're having, dinners and a holiday drop-in or whatever, and then they all go away. So what if I ask the guys to focus specifically on, finalizing the snow routes and getting a construction plan together between now and then, and at least something out to us before the next meeting, well enough in advance before the next meeting that we can then start to share that.
Yeah, I would agree to focus on those two things. You can't boil the ocean, as they say, it doesn't have to be perfect. I do think we go after the highest priority items and try to address them first.
Yes, and Mayor, as you know, I have shared a parking plan, a snowplow plan, snow removal emergency route plan. So that is ready to go, and I can definitely get that sent to other people as soon as tomorrow, if necessary. So we can definitely do that. And then I think you're right. And we have me and Cameron did kind of hit a little bit on the construction plan. And actually that's part of our ordinance too for winter, where they can't park for example, they can't it's unlawful to park any vehicle that within 30 feet of an intersection, right? Construction vehicle. So, or a blind curve. And so we already have those ordinances in place right now. But I think if we can focus on those two plans, I can definitely get something by the end of next week.
Great.
I would put some caution around this as well, Tim. What happens if we don't come to a new agreement, so to speak, or a new ordinance. So, maybe we don't get the vote on this, or maybe we don't get to a final vote, because oftentimes you see how long this takes from month to month until
Sure.
March 15th, until the winter is essentially, the big snowfalls are over. So it's
Sure.
almost like you almost, from good risk management, what happens if nothing happens? So
Well,
what are you going to do?
Yeah, that's a great question. And actually, our parking ordinance right now, the way we have it, parking restrictions ordinance, I think we could survive a year if we had to with it. I think what we were trying to do is just kind of get some more language in there that better explains some things and what can happen if there are, for example, a construction vehicle within 30 feet of an intersection, or an overnight parking from a resident. And so we do have those in place currently. And Cameron, you interject by any means if you need, feel free if you need to. But I think looking at it as I was reading it and going through and working with Cameron, I think what we have in place is very good. It's this, we were just trying to clarify it and add some extra things.
Yeah, and I would agree with Tim that there are already provisions in there to deal with blocking the road, with snow removal, with construction vehicles. It's just not as comprehensive as we would like. One of the things I do think that is going to help with the roadway and traffic is the one side of the street parking aspect of it. And so in some ways, even though the priority may be the other two, I think in some ways it's good to get all these done together. But I do think, like Tim said, we're probably within a week of being able to put something out and at least get some feedback from the community and from the council as to where they want to go.
And the biggest culprits are to that one side of the street parking are construction crews who park on both sides of the street and who are really going to make it difficult in the winter if we continue at the construction rate that we're going. So if we can have, worst case scenarios here built in, it sounds like you guys are thinking that way.
Yep, we are.
I think Ralph, that's, you bring up indirectly a good point, which is Cameron and Tim, not just getting the code, which is, as you say, is reasonably sufficient now. It's reinforcing it at our monthly construction meetings to all these guys and telling them it's winter season. If you do this, we will tow. Right? It's not, we're not being nice guys anymore. Okay. Get the word out to your crews, park on both sides, and some cars are going to get ripped out of there. It's that simple.
Hey,
You tow a couple of cars away and that news gets out real fast when it's $150 to get your car back and 3 or 4 hours to find it,
I'm gonna just say something, Ralph. I love all your points, by the way. Thank you. I would rather see us take a little bit of action and do it quickly than try to do something comprehensive. Because we can always continue to tweak as we go. But I just want to say that, in my experience, different crews are there different weeks, and they don't know what the other crews are doing. And one of the challenges that I've observed is that the people that are working on these projects don't know our laws, number one. Number two, they don't know that, first of all, they don't know they all should be on the same side of the street. And then number two, when you tell them they should all be on the same side of the street, there's no specificity as to which side of the street are they supposed to be on. How do you decide who has to move their cars?
Yeah.
So that kind of thing, those things need to be clear as can be in the language of our, construction and parking, regulations. And we may need to purchase signage or do something or put something up on the streets, because I know from my experience on my own street that they don't know which side to park on. You tell them in the morning, okay, whichever side the first guy parks on when he arrives, that's the side that everybody has to park on. Well, that, you like I said, it's different people. You might have the same crew for a few weeks, doing framing, or somebody's inside doing painting, but it's a constant rotation of individuals. And that information that may be passed out at those construction meetings to the project managers or, those folks don't necessarily get down. It doesn't get, it doesn't make it to the individuals who are showing up to, to do their sub work. So, yeah, go ahead.
And I think you're totally right. Right from the beginning on the signs. I mean, it's very confusing because you do see some signs somewhere, but in other places you don't. Like if you come into Rustler, you'll see like no parking, parking after October 31st is not allowed. So you see some of those signs and they're saying, well, I don't see any signs over here. I saw that sign over there, so I guess I'm totally okay. So there's that piece. And then just, and I think 90% of our, 80% of our problem is construction. So if we can just get a handle on that, we could even make it through this winter anyway, if we couldn't come to a vote on things.
Yeah, I would agree, Ralph. Construction, that's the
So-
number one problem.
So Tim and Daniel, take a look at the options on the language on those signs, if you don't mind. Maybe we need to say town-wide.
Yeah.
Because I'm not going to put a sign on every street.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, Mayor, because that was going to be my next comment. But yeah, it is. It's very expensive to for one sign, two signs. It's not that expensive. But once you start, put one on every street. Now that's where the cost racks up. So definitely, we'll look into that and we'll take care of that for you.
Yeah,
But I have
well,
a question, please.
Sure.
It has nothing to do with construction. I mean, I totally agree with all the issues with construction and the way you're going to go about resolving them. But this is a residential question, and I don't know if it's an HOA matter or if it is a town matter, and that is the parking places that have been provided by the developers, extra parking places. They still continually are full of cars that are permanently parked where people use, a resident may have 3 cars, so they put 2 in the garage and 1 in those provided parking spaces. Who is responsible for controlling that and ticketing or towing those cars away so they can be used for guests?
That's HOA, Carol, because those are on private land. They're not.
Okay.
They're not on.
That's all
the
okay,
municipal
thank you for
space.
that. Okay,
So
Thank
go
you.
go to your HOA committee and say, hey, guys, we need to be stronger in this space. You're right. They're useless if they're continually full. It doesn't
Right.
help.
Right.
okay. Thank
Okay.
And
you.
I thought the master HOA reads no parking in the project with the word project capitalized, and there's a definition around that. So I don't think it includes public streets, but it includes the project. So as Mayor was just saying, that's the, those little cutouts are part of the project then, and or they're designated parking, or other areas are not. So I think if you look at if you look at the master development agreement, I think it's in there, and that's the baseline that the HOAs have to deal with, from what I gather. Anyway, would love to maybe we could get some further information on that. That would be terrific, because I think that does connect to our parking issues, like you're saying, Carol.
Right,
And-
yeah, if you can't park in those spaces, then you're parking on the street, and then that presents a
Exactly, yeah.
problem. Right, okay.
And Mayor, I want to bring this up also, that there is one town, city in Utah, that has narrow streets, and it's South Jordan, and specifically the Daybreak development. They actually have it in their ordinance that per address, they kind of use it by addresses, and they tell them, if you're this address and it's an even number, you're only supposed to park on this side of the street, right? And so they have language, other cities have language that makes it town-wide, and in this case, development-wide for them, for that master plan community. So we will definitely look into that and see, Cameron, if we can, and Daniel, to make sure that we can do something like that is really easy to understand, and maybe use that town-wide.
Yeah, I mean, I go to Daybreak a fair bit because of some personal business I have down there. So I know the town well, and it does seem to be under control. I mean, there are
It does.
narrow streets, but people seem to be pretty good about adhering to which side and when and that kind of stuff. So
Yep. And
it's
a lot of
not
that.
it's not a bad model.
No, and a lot of that has to do with, as you mentioned earlier, with enforcement, right? The more you can enforce it, at first I'm sure they struggled with it, but as soon as cars started getting towed away, boy, I bet you everybody fell in line really quickly. So again, I think we're going to be able to get to that point, and we'll have something to you by the end of next week, council and mayor, that will address hopefully kind of a good jumping off point to move forward and get it approved.
If I speak to that with Daybreak, it was very difficult right at first, but once we had the backing of the HOA and we had the backing of writing tickets, those things, it became very quickly something that was remedied because the residents and the construction and everything decided that that wasn't what they wanted to have happen. So having worked there and having to plow during those seasons at the beginning was very difficult, but once we got it set, it was actually quite nice. So
Great, Daniel, thank you. So real on the street experience there, so that's great. All right, guys, thanks for the update, and we'll look forward to seeing your next cut in the next week.
Yep.
And we'll start getting feedback. We'll get it out to some HOAs, and we'll get it out to the community and start to see how it goes.
Yes, sir. Sounds good. We will get it done.
And we can even use it in the construction meeting for feedback. Doesn't mean that we're going to ignore. Doesn't mean we won't ignore everything that they tell us, but we'll
right.
Yeah, and hear why they think it's wrong.
Correct.
And think about it. So.
And as you know, Mayor, we harp on those things when we have our developer meetings every month with them to, make sure they're parking on one side and doing these things. And so we'll continue to do that, let them know. And I think the developers are doing a good job. It's just like Chris had mentioned, it's, sometimes they forget or, new people come in and they don't know. And so we're slowly getting it resolved, hopefully. And that's my hope. And we'll continue to work hard on this for both you and the council.
Thanks. All right, guys, are we okay to move on? All right. So then let's mute our phones for those that are yelling at their kids or their dogs or both. And let's move on to the last agenda item. So this is a draft of an ordinance that basically reinforces some practices that we have today. And I'll let Cameron's done some work on this. So Cameron, I'll let you kind of tee it up if that's okay.
Sure. Thanks, Mayor. So the direction I received from the mayor was that the town has a history of involving the council in the hiring of managers and key employees, and the mayor said that has been a good practice and it's produced some good results, and he wanted to formalize that. So I drafted an ordinance that essentially makes it official and a formal practice for the mayor to include a council member in the hiring process of an individual. And then once that selection is made and the recommendation is made by the mayor, the council has the opportunity to advise and consent and must consent to that selection. And that goes for hiring and for terminations. So that's what the statute does, or the ordinance does rather, and happy to answer questions.
So again, this basically codifies, the definition of management and position. So this would be, and in senior positions, not just the direct employees, but also contract employees. So this basically says that if we're going to hire a town attorney, like we did when Dan left us, we involved council members in that selection process. When I was looking at Jan, I involved council members in that selection process. And so we want to, wanted to be sure that we don't allow pressure of a need to do X, Y, and Z get in the way of doing the job right. I'd rather figure out how we get through a short-term issue and keep targeting the quality of people that we've been getting lately through this process versus just grabbing the first person who throws in their resume. So that's what this is about. It's nothing different than we've been doing before. We can, I don't know that you've had time to read it, but it's pretty relatively simple ordinance.
I do have a question. You mentioned in here in the section, the management positions themselves. I was interested in that. So town manager, well, we don't have a town manager, right? We have a
Town
town
administrator.
administrator. I think there's an important, not a subtle difference between a town manager and a town administrator. I think we should correct that because that's not our form of government to have a town manager.
That's correct.
Planner, attorney, engineer, clerk, treasurer. Is Public Works, now that Dan's been brought on and we have a new director, should Public Works or perhaps law enforcement be included in there? I know we don't have we're getting our law enforcement through Wasatch County now, but that was not always the case here. Should those positions be included or where do we draw the line?
Public Works is underneath Tim. And I don't think we all have to agree on who gets to drive the snowplow.
Oh, okay. I'm asking a question. That's a good answer, though. That's a good answer. But I do want to say, when I'm asking about law enforcement, if we ever did have a, chief of police someday or not, is that one of that's where we draw the line on what a management staff is?
I don't, Chris, I mean, we're going to grow over time. I guess we would update this over time. Cameron, some thoughts on, I don't want to start putting in roles that don't exist either, because it just kind of muddies the clarity of the ordinance. But any thoughts, Cameron, or Polly, on what other municipalities do for roles that they don't currently have?
I think, you have the catch-all there at the beginning of a manager, supervisor, or professional services employee. So that kind of catches it all. We were just trying to give a sense of what those roles were. So again, yes, if you end up having a police department, then you could always it would be easy to update this this section as opposed to having positions that don't exist.
Yeah, no, thank you. I appreciate that. I had missed the catch-all at the beginning, but I do want to say that I am fully supportive of this ordinance because it's important to separate out professional staff of the town that we want to have, great consistency with and, hire and retain good people, and separate that from the political elected officials and, maybe appointed members, but elected officials, because, those could change and we don't want to be flip-flopping like every 2 years or 4 years, depending on who happens to get elected. I think it's really important that we have, we have good, competent, talented staff that we, can try to hire and retain.
Continuity is critical. As you know, Chris, because you've been around in working with the town and for as long as you have, that, without folks like Kent, we'd have been in real trouble, right? Because, he was here from the beginning and was able to bring a lot of perspective for us. So it's, I agree that that's part of why we're after this, is to make sure that we have, the decisions we make around not just hiring, but also separating, go through a solid thought process so that we don't let, and we've also been through the challenges where we've had significant turnover, like in the clerk role, where a lot of the knowledge walked right out the door. Same when Sharon was working on us on the finance side, and then they upped and moved somewhere, and all that went away. So we got to do a little bit more work on making sure that we've got documented processes and systems, but we also need to make sure we're making good decisions around if we have to separate, what does it take to do that, and how do we do that in a way that we don't lose ground when that happens. I think it would be good to make sure that we're all holding hands when we say, okay, we got to make a change here, and here's the way to go at that, so we can minimize the impact on the town. So it's a one-pager basically.
Well, I'm in favor of it as long as we make that change to the town, call out the town administrator.
Yeah. Any other comments from council?
I can only draw from my previous experience, and the two towns on the East Coast had the same kind of approach to things. So it seems like it's fairly standard, and I guess be a good time to have this in writing.
Thank you, Ralph. Should I don't want to become the megalomaniac I'm prone to be. So this helps me helps you rein me in when I'm out of control.
I think it looks good.
All right, then what I would need is a motion to adopt an ordinance establishing that advice and consent of council is required for hiring, engaging, or terminating management positions for the town of Hideout, recognizing that we also need to modify the listed position from town manager to town administrator.
So moved.
Thank you, Bob.
I'll second. This is Chris.
Thank you, Chris. All right, let's see how we're going to go. Ralph.
Yes.
Adopt. Thank you. Carol. Carol. Okay, we'll come back to Carol. Bob.
Yes.
And Chris.
Yes.
Carol, are you back? I believe it's *6, Carol. Well, maybe she walked away from the just there. However, we have 3 yes votes, which means it passes. So, Polly, what do I do when I can't seem to find Carol?
I think you can, so you still have a quorum, so
Yeah.
you can vote on it, and she'll just be absent for it. Unless she's texted someone.
Okay, so it does pass by having 3 votes, and Carol is an absent. So thank you guys for that. We'll get this codified and move it forward. This ends the public agenda for the evening. We do have an update on some pending litigation and or personnel matters and or real estate that we need to talk about. And so what I would like to do is a motion to close the public session and move to executive.
So moved.
And then what we'll do is what we usually do, which is we'll disconnect from this meeting and then dial back in after a couple of minute bio break. So thank you, Bob, for the motion. Can I have a second on that?
I'll second.
Thank you, Chris. Okay. All in favor, Ralph?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
Bob? Yeah, okay. Carol? Did you come back, Carol? Not yet? Okay. All
Chris
right,
is a yes.
I got that, Chris. Thank you.
Sure.
All right, so thank you all very much. We will close the meeting and then it is, let's see, look at my clock here. It is 8:12 p.m. So 8:15, we'll get back on and do the exec stuff. All right. Thanks all. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Good night.